In the dark waters of the North Sea, a silent giant began to rise, the narrator's voice echoes over the sound of crashing waves and sonar pings. Cold mist drifts over a restless sea, the same waters that swallowed hundreds of ships during World War II. But this story isn't about a battle. It's about something that vanished beneath the surface and refused to stay buried. The German submarine U-17 was one of the Kriegsmarine's most advanced underwater weapons, a steel predator designed for stealth, capable of striking without warning. Yet in the final chaotic days of World War II, it disappeared without a trace. No distress call. No survivors. No wreckage. Just silence. For decades, U-17 was believed to be lost forever, another casualty of the deep. But in the summer of 2024, a private recovery team scanning the North Sea stumbled upon something extraordinary. Their sonar screens flickered with static, then showed a massive shadow, resting deep beneath layers of sediment. It was unlike any known wreck. The object was too large, too dense, and emitting faint magnetic readings no shipwreck should produce. At first, the team thought it was a geological formation. But as they drew closer, they realized this was man-made. And when the first underwater drone descended into the darkness, its camera revealed unmistakable markings, U-17. The submarine that was never supposed to exist. But there was something even more disturbing. The wreck appeared sealed from the inside, as if its crew had locked themselves in. And according to wartime records, U-17 wasn't carrying just torpedoes, it was on a classified mission so secret that its destination was erased from official documents. To understand the mystery of U-17, we have to go back to the final, desperate years of World War II, when Nazi Germany's war machine was collapsing, and its scientists were racing against time. By 1944, the Allies had already broken through much of Europe. German cities lay in ruins, fuel supplies were dwindling, and the once mighty Luftwaffe could barely stay in the air. But beneath the chaos, in hidden naval bases along the Baltic and North Seas, a different kind of war was being waged, a war of secrets. The German Kriegsmarine had begun deploying U-boats not just as weapons, but as transport vessels for classified missions so secret that even senior officers knew only fragments. Among these was the Type 7 U-17, assigned to what Nazi command called Operation Nibelma, Sea of Fog. Officially, the mission didn't exist. But fragments of intercepted communications hinted that U-17 wasn't carrying soldiers or supplies. It was carrying cargo, something Hitler's scientists wanted kept far from Allied hands. Some reports from Allied intelligence described it as experimental energy equipment. Others suggested uranium samples intended for a last-ditch nuclear project, a desperate attempt to create a weapon to change the course of the war. Yet not all theories pointed to science. In the years after the war, whispers grew darker. U-17, some claimed, had been tasked with transporting looted treasures and occult relics, artifacts seized from across Europe under the secret orders of Heinrich Himmler's Ahnenerbe, a Nazi organization obsessed with ancient power and mythology. According to a declassified British naval memo from 1946, U-17's final transmission came from somewhere in the North Sea, coded and brief, cargo secured. Submerging for final route. After that, silence. No wreckage. No survivors. No trace of the submarine was ever found. For decades, historians dismissed U-17 as another casualty of the chaotic final months of war, until recent discoveries suggested otherwise. Because if U-17 did sink where records suggest, it should have been found long ago. And yet, sonar scans show it's buried deeper than any wartime sub should be, as if something dragged it down, or it sank in a place it was never meant to reach. For nearly 8 decades, U-17 was nothing more than a ghost story whispered among naval historians, a phantom lost to time. That changed in 2024, when a commercial pipeline survey team working off the coast of northern Scotland picked up something strange on their sonar. The crew of the Argo 9, a Norwegian deep-sea vessel contracted to inspect undersea pipelines, was conducting a routine scan across the northern edge of the North Sea, an area mapped countless times before. But this time, something appeared on their instruments that shouldn't have been there. A shadow. Long, dense. Too symmetrical to be a rock formation. Too massive to be modern wreckage. At first, the operator thought it was a sensor glitch. The object lay nearly 900 feet beneath the surface, half buried in the seabed, surrounded by unusually compact sand layers, as if time itself had sealed it away. The sonar technician replayed the footage frame by frame. The outlines were unmistakable, a submarine hull, measuring roughly 67 meters in length. And not just any hull, the shape matched the blueprint of a Type 7 German U-boat, a model that had vanished from every naval record since 1945. When the coordinates were sent to maritime authorities, the reaction was immediate. Within weeks, a joint recovery team, made up of British, German, and Norwegian specialists, was dispatched to verify the find. What they discovered next stunned even the most seasoned divers. Descending into the pitch-black depths, the divers expected to find a corroded skeleton of steel, the kind of wreck that collapses under the pressure of decades underwater. But when their lights cut through the murky waters, the first glimpse of U-17 froze them in silence. They expected rusted steel. What they found defied every expectation. The hull was intact, almost eerily so. The insignia of the Kriegsmarine Eagle was still visible, faintly gleaming beneath layers of sediment. Even the serial markings, U-17, were legible. The metal, though covered in silt, showed no signs of the decay typical of 80-year-old wrecks. It was as if the submarine had been preserved, protected by the seabed itself. ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, hovered around the wreck, capturing high-resolution footage. The images sent to the surface were haunting, the periscope still extended, the propellers unbroken, and the hatches sealed tight. Inside, the sonar scans revealed unusual readings. A faint heat signature. Something metallic pulsing deep within the cargo hold. But that shouldn't have been possible, not after 8 decades underwater. Lead engineer Dr. Henrik Volstad, watching the data stream in, whispered into the comms, either we just found the best preserved U-boat in history, or something that was never meant to resurface. Within 48 hours, news of the discovery leaked to maritime circles. Governments scrambled to secure jurisdiction. Germany requested that the site be treated as a military grave, but anonymous insiders hinted there was more at stake than respect for the dead. Because U-17 hadn't just been found, it was awakened. And whatever secrets lay sealed inside that hull, the world was about to uncover them. The day of the breach began before dawn. The sea above the wreck was unnaturally calm, a glassy mirror stretching endlessly toward the horizon. Below, the dive team prepared for what would become one of the most delicate and dangerous underwater recoveries in modern history. Floodlights from the Argo 9 cut through the blackness, illuminating the outline of U-17, half entombed in the seabed. Sediment clouds drifted like underwater fog as robotic arms began to clear the sand away, exposing more of the hull with every slow, careful movement. Each clang of metal echoed through the water, hollow, ancient, and ghostly. Divers descended in pairs, moving with precision, guided by ROVs and laser scanners. Every inch of the submarine was documented. The hull plating, unbelievably, showed no signs of war damage. It was as if the vessel had gone down intact, not sunk by depth charges or torpedoes, but deliberately placed there. Inside the control room, a tense silence filled the air as the dive leader, Commander Elise Kramer, gave the go-ahead. Cut through the upper hatch. Maintain structural integrity at all costs. The divers steadied themselves against the hull. Sparks burst through the darkness as the plasma torch sliced a thin line through the steel. A faint vibration rippled through the water, followed by an eerie groan, like the submarine itself was exhaling after decades of silence. When the hatch finally gave way, a swirl of dark silt poured out, clouding the water like smoke from a forgotten fire. The divers floated inside. Their lights revealed a world frozen in time. The control panels, covered in a fine layer of silt, were still intact, every dial, lever, and switch preserved in their final position. Faded logbooks drifted across the command deck, their ink erased by decades underwater. The seats were still upright. Coffee mugs, cracked but recognizable, lay beside rusted sidearms. No bodies. No signs of struggle. Just silence. As they moved deeper, they reached the aft section, sealed off by reinforced bulkheads. The metal doors were painted with faded red German military insignia, each marked only with a serial number and a warning, Nicht öffnen, Hochgeheim, do not open, top secret. Even through the distortion of the water, the red paint seemed almost fresh. Kramer ordered the team to scan the section for structural weaknesses. The sonar revealed dense, metallic contents, too concentrated to be torpedoes or standard ammunition. The divers exchanged uneasy glances. Could be experimental, one muttered. Or radioactive, another whispered. Still, the command came through. Proceed. As the plasma cutter touched the edge of the sealed compartment, the first alarm flickered on the ROV monitor. A faint spike, radiation. At first, they thought it was a calibration error. But then another sensor blinked red. And another. Levels rising. Slowly, but undeniably. Kramer's voice crackled through the comms, all teams, pause cutting. Confirm readings. On the Argo 9, the command deck erupted in tension. Engineers scrambled over instruments. The Geiger counters were pulsing erratically, small bursts every few seconds. Something inside that compartment was still active. The divers sealed the breach temporarily, retreating to a safe distance. Through the murky water, the red insignia glowed faintly under their lights, almost defiant. Back on the surface, Dr. Henrik Volstad reviewed the data. His voice was calm, but his expression wasn't. The storm had passed by dawn, leaving the North Sea eerily still, as if the ocean itself were waiting. Below the surface, the divers returned to the U-17, their torches cutting thin beams of light through the black water. The sealed compartment, marked with the red insignia, loomed before them once more. After hours of analysis, the decision was made, open it, but under strict containment protocols. The divers moved with the precision of surgeons. The plasma cutter hissed, slicing through steel that had not seen air in nearly 80 years. The hatch gave a sudden metallic groan, and then, slowly, it drifted open. Inside lay a chamber filled with strange cylindrical containers and metallic crates, all secured in intricate racks bolted to the floor. The divers carefully lifted the cylinders and crates into containment pods. Within hours, the first recovered objects were transferred to the Argo 9's onboard laboratory, a sealed facility usually reserved for chemical sampling. The scientists gathered in tense silence as the lead researcher, Dr. Henrik Volstad, prepared to open the first container. The hiss of escaping pressure echoed through the lab. When the lid was lifted, the interior shimmered faintly, not from light, but from the strange metallic sheen of its contents. Inside lay rods of an unknown alloy, perfectly smooth, cold to the touch, and heavier than tungsten. Volstad ran a handheld spectrometer over one rod. The readings made no sense. The alloy didn't match any known terrestrial signature. It was as if it had been engineered from materials outside conventional chemistry. But the second container was far more unsettling. It held a single black orb, the size of a human skull, resting in a cradle of rusted brackets. Its surface was flawless, a mirror black sphere that reflected light in impossible ways. As Volstad reached out, his digital compass began to spin erratically. The orb emitted no radiation, yet the instruments picked up faint magnetic pulses, rhythmic and deliberate, like a heartbeat. "Is it mechanical?" one of the assistants whispered. Volstad didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the orb. "No, this feels biological." The room fell silent. Later that night, when the data was transmitted to Berlin for expert review, an encrypted reply came back almost instantly: cease analysis. Await directive. That was when historian Dr. Myra Kappel, reviewing the recovered markings, found something buried deep in declassified archives, a fleeting reference to Project Schlepper, listed as a field transport system for gravitational research. The term sent a shiver through her. Gravitational research, it matched the rumored code name of another forbidden Nazi experiment, Die Glock, or the Bell. According to post-war testimonies, Die Glock was a bell-shaped device allegedly capable of manipulating energy fields, time perception, or even gravity itself. Most dismissed it as myth, until now. If U-17 had been transporting part of that experiment, or something related to it, then the implications were far beyond ordinary archaeology. The black orb was transferred to a high-security research facility on the German coast, under armed escort and constant surveillance. Even before analysis began, the scientists noticed something disturbing: every piece of digital equipment near it began to malfunction. Compasses spun, hard drives wiped, and electromagnetic sensors short-circuited within minutes of exposure. The research team led by Dr. Henrik Volstad decided to study it inside a Faraday-shielded chamber. Once sealed, the orb emitted faint, rhythmic low-frequency pulses, each lasting exactly 4.7 seconds apart, like a heartbeat echoing through the walls. At first, the team assumed it was a mechanical power core, maybe an experimental generator. But when they ran magnetic field scans, the data became almost impossible to interpret. The readings didn't follow natural decay patterns, they self-corrected, fluctuating in perfect symmetry, as if the object was responding to observation. Dr. Volstad stared at the live feed and whispered, "It's not just magnetic, it's aware of being measured." Meanwhile, a historian working alongside the team uncovered something chilling from the Bundesarchiv in Berlin, a series of classified blueprints dated 1944, stamped with the same phrase found inside the submarine, U-17 transport, Schlepper phase. The documents described anomalous mass containment and rotational energy instability, terms decades ahead of their time. None of the physicists could make sense of it. The engineering precision in those blueprints surpassed what Germany, or any country in the 1940s, was capable of. Then came the real shock. Samples from the orb's outer layer were sent to independent laboratories for atomic composition analysis. Within days, the results came back, and they defied logic. The metallic structure contained isotopic ratios not found anywhere on Earth. Its atomic arrangement was stable at temperatures that should have vaporized ordinary alloys. This was not 1940s material. It was not human technology. Around the same time, declassified Cold War intelligence reports surfaced. In the 1950s, Allied naval archives recorded multiple covert expeditions in the North Sea, all searching for a missing German submarine allegedly carrying a non-conventional propulsion system. The missions were quietly abandoned after mysterious instrument failures and the disappearance of 2 divers. Those lost reports were now being re-examined. Every description, from the sonar echoes to the coordinates, matched the U-17. As news of the findings leaked within defense circles, panic spread quietly among intelligence agencies. If the Nazi regime had discovered something that advanced in 1944, and if the Allies had been hunting for it ever since, then the implications were terrifying. One late night, Volstad dictated his notes into a recorder, voice trembling. Either the Third Reich built something beyond our physics, or they found it, and tried to make it theirs. It started with a single leaked photograph, a grainy image posted on an obscure maritime forum showing the unmistakable outline of a German U-boat resting beneath the North Sea, its hull intact and stamped with U-17. Within hours, the image spread like wildfire across social media. Accompanying clips, allegedly captured by a diver's bodycam, showed strange cylindrical containers being hoisted from the seabed under heavy military escort. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, everything vanished. Posts were deleted, accounts suspended, and the forum itself was taken offline within 24 hours. Major news outlets briefly mentioned a possible World War II wreck discovery, only to retract their stories hours later. By the next morning, the German Federal Maritime Authority issued a brief statement: "An object of historical and potential security significance has been recovered. Details remain classified for national safety." That single sentence ignited a storm of speculation. Independent researchers and journalists began tracing the salvage operation's movements. Satellite imagery showed several cargo containers being loaded onto a German Navy vessel, which later docked at a restricted facility on the Heligoland archipelago, a site known for experimental weapons testing since the Cold War. Within days, international governments issued near-identical press releases, vague mentions of controlled recovery and environmental safety protocols. No country admitted involvement, yet flight tracking data showed US, British, and Russian military aircraft converging near the recovery zone during the same 48-hour window. Conspiracy forums exploded. Some claimed the cargo held a prototype nuclear reactor, years ahead of 1940s science. Others whispered about Die Glock, the mythical Nazi bell, said to manipulate gravity and time. A few went even further, suggesting that the technology aboard U-17 wasn't German at all, but something extraterrestrial Germany had merely found and attempted to harness. But the most chilling reports came from inside sources, anonymous engineers and naval officers, who hinted that the object had been transferred to an underground military facility where anomalous energy emissions were being monitored. Weeks later, the North Sea recovery site was declared off-limits. Armed patrol boats guarded the area, and sonar mapping of the coordinates was suddenly restricted for environmental reasons. To the public, the story faded. But behind closed doors, the world's most powerful nations were racing, not to recover history, but to understand what U-17 had carried to the bottom of the sea. And if even half the rumors were true, that secret could reshape the balance of power on Earth forever. Weeks after the official silence, one final piece of evidence surfaced, a forgotten document buried deep within declassified Allied archives. Stamped April 1945, it was a naval intelligence memo marked, Top Secret, Eyes Only. It described U-17's final mission in chilling brevity, vessel carrying experimental cargo designated Schlepper phase. Orders: do not attempt recovery. Too dangerous to surface. The report was signed by an officer whose name had been redacted, but one line, scrawled in ink along the margin, said it all: if it reaches open waters, the war ends for everyone. After that entry, U-17 vanished from history. No more transmissions. No coordinates. Just silence, until now. The narrator's voice slows, echoing over deep ocean sounds, low, resonant, eternal. They say the sea never forgets. It hides our triumphs and our tragedies, waiting patiently to return them when the world is ready, or when it's not. Beneath the waves of the North Sea lies more than a submarine. It's a time capsule of human ambition, and of the dangerous hunger to master forces we barely understand. Inside its steel shell rests the weight of a choice made in secret, and perhaps a warning meant for the future. We look at the sonar images, the blurred footage, the redacted reports, and realize, some truths are not lost, they are buried on purpose. Because what if U-17 didn't just vanish to protect the world from discovery, but to protect the world from itself? The camera fades to black. The narrator's final words linger: beneath the ocean lies not just metal, but the weight of secrets humanity may never be ready to face. Then, one final question for the audience: if U-17's discovery was hidden from the world, what else sleeps beneath our oceans, waiting for us to find it?